First impression matters. As human beings, we make decisions every day, and the most important and basic element into our decision making is first impression. Car companies know this. That's why they compete for a decision with every new car they make and throw billions of dollars into research and technology for the next big design. However, more than 100 years ago, it wasn't the case. So in this video, I'm going to take you back in time and show you 10 facts that shaped the evolution of car design throughout our history as we know it today. Because today's cars, they suck. My name is Caleb, a car design enthusiast and a self-taught artist. Without further ado, let me take you back into the late 19th century. It's 1886. A man named Karl Benz introduced to the world the first combustion engine motor car. It was commercially available for the time being, and the name was the Benz Patent-Motorwagen, and the design was mostly mechanical. The first models had 3 large and thin wheels, with a basic carriage-like interior, with an open frame exposing mechanical components, as the engine was just under the seat or behind the seat, and the materials they used was mostly brass components mixed with steel and wooden materials. It had a handle-like for a steering wheel. The design was minimal and simple, with every component on the car having a meaningful function, as it looks simplistic and ready to be used for its task. And most of the people who drove these cars were wealthy people. And this era was marked as the invention of the first real car. Without this era, we wouldn't even be talking about car design today. Now, in the late 1800s to the 1910s, the motor car became popular. As they improved upon the previous designs, they added more practical components to it, like headlights, fenders, an engine in the front with a steel casing, a roof, more seats. They introduced a round steering, 4 wheels as standard, and they added more brass components and steel. However, it was still only purchasable by rich people or acquired by rich individuals. It's at this time a man named Henry Ford came into play, as his design of the Ford Model T changed the game. In fact, the Ford Model T is the perfect car to describe this brass era, as it had a simple but boxy shape, a black paint because it was efficient to dry. It has fenders, a roof, windows with glasses or windshield as we know it today, an engine in the front with a metal cover, large thin wheels, which were 4, with mounted headlamps so that you can drive at night. And it had a grill for the engine to breathe, and it was cheap for an average individual to purchase one. With all these components put together, the Model T really sold like hotcakes. It was very much popular in the 1910s. Other manufacturing companies started following suit as they built their own version of the Ford Model T, and this era in time was called the brass era in automotive terms. Now, from the 1910s to the 1920s, there was a saturation of Ford Model Ts, or variants of the Ford Model T, as every car on the road looked the same. As it was purchasable by a working class individual, the Model T saturated the industry, until the GM Motors CEO named Alfred P. Sloan introduced an annual model change as the solution to this saturation, as they had to update on their models every single year. And it worked, as their designs started to look much more modern and appealing to people, as the Ford Model T started to look outdated in the process. As this put Sloan as one of the people who pioneered the year-to-year update of their models, which we even see to today's cars, as they added minor styling, new features to create a sense of novelty with more streamlined shapes, integrated headlights, aerodynamic lines. As this new solution worked because people wanted to update to the new model or new things. As you know, as human beings, we like to keep things modern or buy things modern, as we see maybe our neighbors buying a new car and even ourselves buy a new car.
Oh my gosh, brand new car!
However, this era was marked as the Art Deco styling. Because of the year-to-year updates, car companies started to integrate art into their cars, as they tried to get inspired on how artistic other things were done, like buildings, tables, walls, and paintings, and tried to incorporate that into their cars. And the best example for such styling was the Chrysler Airflow. As it departed from the boxy shapes, it had more aerodynamic styling, smooth front grille which hugged the boot or the hood in other words, it had an Art Deco movement which was visually striking, with a futuristic appearance, integration of the headlights into the body, with bigger fenders, as the back fenders really ate up the entire wheels, as you can see on this design. The Art Deco movement really went throughout the industry. I'd rather say inspired the entire industry of the time, until another war broke out. Throughout this period, car companies never designed new cars, as all their effort went into creating military equipment and vehicles to transport troops from one point to another and help out their country to win their battles. Now, after the war ended, car companies went back to business. At this point, car companies in Europe and US went different directions in the way they designed their cars. As in the Americas, they were more streamlined and a lot of integrations. Longer cars, a lot of chrome accents, as it was a trend at the time, with tail fins. Cars now in the Americas became more of a statement as they became bigger than they usually were before. And the best example for this era was the Cadillac Eldorado, which was made in 1959. It had tail fins, which had no function at all. It was just a statement. Sleek lines, chrome accents, a luxurious interior. It was big and long. It came in a convertible or hardtop with integrated headlights and a really sleek grille. Meanwhile, in Europe, some car companies kept the design flow of the Art Deco era, and others created exotic and performance-based design, like the Ferrari 250 Europa, the Mercedes 300 SL, and the BMW 507. So this era, post-World War II era, marks the foundation in a way we design cars even today. Now, at this time, the car manufacturing industry is part of the human being's day-to-day living, as we now have established categories like the sedan, the coupe, the trucks, the wagons, the pickup trucks, and the sports car industries. However, there was a movement going on during this time, which was the muscle car movement, as car companies created aggressive and powerful designs which were known to be muscle cars or pony cars. The design flow had an aggressive and powerful design with two doors and mostly had V8 engines with a muscular design flow with a long hood and a hood scoop on top of it, as it was marketed during the growth of the entertainment industry of the time. And the best example to explain this era was the Ford Mustang, as it had a muscular stance, elegance and aggressive design, a smooth grille matching the headlights, a long hood and short trunk, which was a norm for muscular cars or muscle cars, and they came as convertible or a hardtop with a hood scoop which was acting like a nose. These cars was characterized with bigger engines as the gas prices were quite low at the time in the Americas, and most of the people were doing fine at this time, as this was the muscle car era. Until the oil crisis broke out. And here's something I haven't talked about. I'm just talking about American and European car industry, but there was a booming car industry which was in Asia, in Japan and the Koreas. All in all, it was in Asia. So they made smaller, boxier cars which catered for an average person in that area or in that continent. At first, they copied designs from the West until they started making their own. So as their car industry bloomed and grew, they tried to penetrate into these other industries, into the Western industries. At first, their cars wasn't much popular at the time until the oil crisis hit, as majority Western people tried to buy smaller, fuel-efficient and reliable cars to keep up with their day-to-day living as the oil crisis hit. And the perfect example of such a car was the Honda Civic, which was a compact car, had a lightweight design with a fuel-efficient engine. It came in a hatchback and a sedan with a boxy shape, simple and functional interior with small wheels. It wasn't something luxurious, it was just a simple car which can take you from point A to point B without fuzzing or thinking about the fuel consumption, as other American companies tried to create more fuel-efficient cars. Like Ford released the Pinto. In Europe, there was a Mini Cooper, there were Peugeot, who was making smaller cars to keep up with the crisis. Until the aerodynamic revolution began, which was characterized by wind tunnel testing, which influenced the car design, with smoother shapes like in the 50s, but with newer designs. So the aerodynamic influenced the car's performance and aesthetics, with incorporating smooth edges and functional design. With the rise of computer modeling, it was easier to create an aerodynamic car. And the best car to represent this styling was the Ford Taurus, as it had smooth bodywork, grills or no grills, it had an aerodynamic design, Though it looked boring, but it had a functional and practical design, which saved Ford from low sales because of the fuel crisis and all that stuff, blah blah blah. However, meanwhile in Europe, as car companies used the same wind tunnel testing, they created stunning, good-looking cars, which were mostly performance-based vehicles like the Porsche 959, Ferrari F40, and in Asia like the Toyota MR2. And the aerodynamic revolution still influences today's design. Now, from the 1990s to the early 2000s, there was an SUV boom. SUV means the sport utility vehicle, like the Range Rover. However, the Range Rover has been there ever since the early 70s, is it 60s? Alright, it's Land Rover and it was founded in 1948. So SUVs have been around ever since in the early 1900s. However, the SUV trend started growing in the 1990s to the 2000s. Until today, we have an SUV boom. We started with boxy designs, high ground clearance, rugged aesthetics, larger wheels, and mostly they are based on a pickup truck chassis. And here's the best car to represent this SUV boom. Although it's a bit controversial. It's the Toyota RAV4, introduced in 1994. It is considered to be the first crossover vehicle. It has a look and feel of an SUV on a unibody platform. It came in 305-door crossover SUV with a wheel on the back, smooth edges. It looked happy unlike today, and it majorly contributed to the rise of the popularity of the SUV boom. And now we're coming to the modern trends. In other words, I call it the boring trends of the 2000s to the early 2010s, which were characterized by aerodynamic cars with they introduced LED lighting to the cars, integration of advanced materials, smooth bodywork. There were a lot of boring cars while others excelled. A rise in crossover vehicles and SUVs continued in this era with an emphasis on environmentally friendly solution, like the hybrid started to grow. The trend of the hybrid started to grow in this era. However, the best example for this era was the Honda Civic, which adopted a more angular design mixed with the soft ones, with a big interior, although it looked small from the outside. It had a practical design. They also made hybrid models and their commitments to a modern design language. And it was perfect in time of the 2008 crisis. However, when it came to the rise of the crossover SUVs, we had the Ford Expedition, the Pontiac Aztek, and the Honda CR-V. However, in this era, car companies tried to play it safe, as they created designs to comply with government regulations and day-to-day trends. A company called Tesla was founded in July 1st, 2003, during the modern era, by Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. However, Elon Musk in February 2004 invested $6.5 million, making him the largest shareholder of the company. 4 years later, in 2008, he became the CEO and oversaw the making of the Roadster sports car, electric sports car. The Model S was introduced in 2012 until the Cybertruck in 2023. I'm one individual who have a soft spot for Tesla cars. I just like the design language of the Model S. However, when it came to the Cybertruck, it has split people in half. There are people who love it and people who hate it. And unfortunately enough, I'm part of the people who hate the Cybertruck. On the design language, compartments, not the overall materials used. And here's the thing, the modern era is filled with fast-paced moving trends. And I personally believe car companies are having a hard time to keep up with the trends and create a futuristic design. However, today's design are more like a fashion statement. In fact, I compare it to the fashion industry, which is run by rich individuals as they have access to the best materials, the best fabric, the best cotton, and access to high-end equipment. But when you look at their display of their newly designed clothing on the runways in Paris and in these exotic cities, all I say is just trash, and they call it expression. Because I find it easy to compare this trend, these fashion statements, to car companies and the way they are designing their new cars, which are backed by government regulations, as going electric is one of them, as they are over-expressing the design languages of their cars, and they are making them in the name of being futuristic, while the same design can't hold up its presence in the future. And the best example of this expression is the BMW 7 Series, or the BMW lineup today, which is characterized by complex design language, huge or larger grilles, with a luxurious interiors filled with technology and subtle chrome accents. And in the process, they're highly customizable. And this design language it's cutting its fan base in half. There are a lot of people who love the older BMWs and they hate these new designs, and people who really love these new designs and never maybe owned a previous BMW, with their radical design languages throughout the industry. However, not everything is bad, as at now there are few exceptions. For example, there is the newer Toyota Land Cruiser, which they are incorporating older designs into one and giving it new technology. Because as it stands today, it's like in the early 1900s, as they were a lot of Model Ts and they saturated the industry. And today, there are a lot of complex designs and they are saturating the industry, as people or car enthusiasts are longing for that older generation with newer technology. However, if you disagree with my remarks, these are just my personal opinions, you can leave a comment in the comment section below, or if I left out certain things, you can say them or write them down in the comment section below. If you like this video, just subscribe or like it, and I'll see you in the next one.